Do you ever do that thing, like when you wake up on a Wednesday and you still feel a little bit tired, so you think, I know, I'll have a nap, and then you wake up and it's no longer Wednesday, and you realise you've just wasted an entire day sleeping? No? Just me then. Alright then, let's do the bonus. You'll notice we've got a swanky new houndstooth pattern for the thumbnails and the intro. That should serve us nicely for the next 5 episodes. And you'll also notice I'm playing Metro Redux. I actually bought this on release, but my copy got lost in transit, so it never arrived. I got refunded, but unfortunately the game went out of stock after that. And I've only just bothered to pick up a copy because I've kind of run out of games to play. I'm still playing Forza Horizon 2, but I'm starting to get a little bit bored of it. You know, I don't mind doing like a couple of races a day, but I just can't spend all day playing it. So I thought I'd get Redux and I'd replay Metro 2033, because it has been a while since I played this one. Anyway, what happened this week? Oh yes, I did a trial of Retro Ahoy on my main channel, and it went rather well, I think. I mean, it helps that Half-Life is a very popular game. But I think what I'll do is, after the next round of Iconic Arms in early 2015, I'll definitely do a round of Retro Ahoys after that. I think I'll do 5 classic FPS games. I think I've mentioned them before. I think it's Wolfenstein 3D, Doom, Quake, Duke Nukem, and Unreal. And by doing those, I'll have a body of 6 classic FPS games, which kind of, as a composite, form a pretty comprehensive history of the early days of FPS. Beyond that, I think I would like to cover a more diverse array of games, but I shall leave that to future me to plan. But I do like the idea of doing themed short series, so maybe I'll pick out 6 games which have something in common. They might not be of the same category, they might be of wildly different genres, but if I can link them somehow. Anyway, on the more immediate horizon, I'm still kind of in a pioneer project sort of phase, and my creativity seems to be taking me towards video game history stuff, so that's kind of where I've been for the last month or so. Next up, I'm going to try a slightly different approach to the brief history concept. As an experiment, I'm trying to sort of condense my writing into a more sort of structured package. And instead of producing a monolithic video, I'm going to produce it in a series of parts. I don't know how well that will go, but it does mean my uploads will be more frequent. I'm planning 5 parts, released Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It will take me a couple of weeks to actually prep everything, but once I'm there, for a week, my channel will be very active. And I've got to admit, I'm curious to see what sort of effect that has on subscribership, and, you know, it might set the scene for more serialized content of a similar form, or it might turn me off it entirely. It's an experiment. Who knows? It's my goal to finish this video just before Call of Duty arrives. And then, once that's here, I'll get to work unlocking stuff, and I'll finalize a format for Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. I'm in 2 minds as to whether I should cover Advanced Warfare because, well, my other stuff has found quite a bit of popularity, and part of me thinks I should just, you know, push that more. But I don't know, we'll see. We'll see. I have a feeling this might be the last Call of Duty game that I ever cover in this way. Anyway, enough telegraphing my future plans. Let's get on to your questions. Ben Feldman says, how would you organise the modern world's social structure? Well, obviously, there'd be me at the top, clearly, you know. And, well, that's it, really. I'd have everyone else executed or something, I don't know. I might finally get some peace and quiet then. So in conclusion, you probably shouldn't give me kind of a totalitarian power over everybody in the world, because I probably would abuse that. And don't get me wrong, I don't dislike people, not at all. I just really like having my own space. OG Drift says, Stu, have you ever played the Burnout series? Burnout 3 and Paradise are some of the best racing games ever. I have played them, yes, and I did find them pretty good fun. Burnout 3 is probably the finest swan song of the Gen 6 racing genre, and Paradise was that was a pretty solid Gen 7 title. I wonder if Burnout will ever return. Didn't they tease something along those lines? I can't remember which studio it was. I remember there was some work in progress game shown. Didn't look very finished, so it might be a few years yet, but you never know. Burnout might return to form. Biggest Beanie Baby fan ever says, with Sledgehammer Games supposedly breathing new life into the COD series, do you still think that the series is nearly dead/dying, or do you think that maybe it's becoming more lively? My gut feeling? Call of Duty is past its prime. I don't think any future installment is going to be quite as popular as COD 4, Modern Warfare 2 were. Essentially, the time has passed. Same goes for Guitar Hero, you know? Now, I'm not saying that Advanced Warfare might not be, you know, it could be a good game, might be popular, it might do okay. They may even surpass Ghosts. You know, and certainly if they do make a quality title, if they do innovate, then, well, I think Ghosts is probably a low watermark for the series. But compared to former glory, no chance, no way. I think, like the FPS world moved on from World War II shooters, I think it's probably about ready to move on from Call of Duty. Maybe the franchise will kind of be a perennial, maybe it will come back. Think of like the Need for Speed series, for instance. It's been around for 20 years, and sometimes it fades into irrelevance, and then sometimes they come out with a good game and people are like, oh wow, the series is back, and then the games start to get a bit stale again, and then everybody forgets about it for a few years. So we'll see how it goes. I suspect they might eventually move away from the yearly release schedule, but maybe something needs to come along to threaten Call of Duty's dominance first. Ewan Diamond says, hey Stu, what are your thoughts on the Dead Space series? Did you enjoy them? Would you like another game to be released? Yeah, I kind of did like Dead Space. I'm not normally big into horror stuff, but at least in Dead Space you are given the tools you need, like the plasma cutter. You can actually... Yeah, I don't like the sort of the impotent horror genre where you can't fight the monsters. But, you know, if you can fight back, if you can shoot limbs off, then yeah, I prefer that. The only trouble with the Dead Space games is that they kind of lost the horror ethos. And the two sequels they became a little bit more action-oriented. And I think they lost some of the atmosphere because of that. Also, I don't like the story. I really don't like the story, like all this marker nonsense. I don't care. I don't care. Please don't try and explain your monsters. They're monsters, they're not real, they're not supposed to be real. Stop trying to give them a story. I'd love like a Space Hulk / Dead Space crossover, where, you know, you're an engineer going to repair a vessel and oh no, necromorphs. But no, instead they have to try and have a story and everything falls apart. And then they try and have a bad guy who wore a fantastic coat, if I remember correctly. It's like, why is there a human bad guy? The necromorphs are the bad guys. They're the ones who try and rip your face off. Adam Smith says, hey Stu, what do you think about a brief history of cheat codes? I think there is a fair amount of games out there with cheats, and it could be interesting to watch. If I look at my whiteboard, I've actually got something in this arena. It's a brief history of game difficulty. Now, cheats and difficulty, they kind of tie into one another. And one of the sections I have planned is, I've called it Contra Code, which is kind of a shorthand for a discussion of the effect of cheats on game difficulty, and, you know, stuff like Nintendo Heart and how it was subverted through stuff like the Contra Code. So that could happen. I don't know precisely what format it will be presented as. Might be done as a special. I might do it as a multi-part thing if this experiment goes well. Otherwise, I don't know. But yeah, something in that arena. An exploration of game difficulty over the years, starting with arcade games and how they are incentivized to be hard. And then we can go sort of through, you know, cheat codes, and then we can talk about stuff like quick saves and save scumming, and maybe mention like a slight resurgence in a desire for difficulty. Obviously, Dark Souls is a major example there. The emergence of roguelikes, stuff like that. I think there's definitely a potential for a video there. It might be something I explore in the future. Maybe I could slot it in between Iconic Arms and Retro Hoy. Maybe. Or maybe I'll do it after Retro Hoy. Who knows? Only the future. Closet Brony says, Stu, what's your opinion on digital game distribution, always on DRM, and cloud gaming? Do you believe that all of this is the future of video games? I think it is pretty clear that all digital is the way forward. I mean, if you look at the music industry, I mean, everything now is streamed music, MP3s. Nobody really buys compact discs anymore. There's no need for them. And the same is true for any games that come on a disc. It's an archaic model of distribution, and it will die off, as much as, you know, people get sentimental about owning games. I do think, though, with a change of distribution, there also needs to be a change in the way that games are charged for. I think there is a fundamental difference in value between a digital game locked to an account and a physical game that comes on a CD that can be resold and reused. I do think if you're going to lose the ability to resell your games, then the price has to come down. And again, this is reflected in Steam. Steam games generally tend to have deep discounts on them. The pricing models are a lot more fluid, unlike disc-based games which tend to have a certain value on the second-hand market. And I think people would welcome a digital distribution system for consoles, but it's kind of a chicken and egg issue because the prices do have to come down first, really. And also retail still has a certain degree of power in the games industry, and they won't like being cut out of the loop. So yeah, it's probably safe to say that consoles will one day resemble a model similar to Steam, but it might take a little bit of time. Now, always on DRM, that's a slightly different issue. In theory, I'm not 100% averse to it, because, I do have a continuous internet connection, but I do find sometimes I get booted out of games because their servers have gone down. I'm like, really? Really? Is that what you're going to do? You're going to boot me out of a single-player game because your servers went down? Yeah. So I do think if you are going to do it, you need to have a very resilient system. So if your internet goes down for a minute, maybe don't kick me off straight away. I do think there needs to be some provision for offline play. DRM it's never, nobody likes DRM, really, but it is kind of a necessary evil. And so, well, some people would even argue whether it's necessary or not, but the fact remains that piracy does exist, and it is likely to have an oppositionary effect on game sales. It's difficult to make any sort of solid claims in that arena, because obviously one pirated game is not equivalent to one game sale, but it seems fairly logical. If you can get something for free with no consequence, then, people are going to take advantage of that. Anyway, I've gone into the realm of piracy, and I don't really want to because, people who pirate, they justify it to themselves, I don't think anybody's ever downloaded a pirated game without a good moral reason. But, unfortunately, that moral reason changes from person to person, Oh, I was just testing it out. Oh, I owned it on this platform, but I wanted to see what the PC version was like. Oh, I just didn't really want to support the publisher's restrictive DRM policy. Yeah, right. I've pirated games in the past, and I still occasionally, if I need to record something, I might look for a pirated version. Now, I do sometimes try and look for a decent deal on a Steam key, but if they're trying to flog it for 30 quid and I need a 3-second clip, I'm just going to look for a dodgy copy. I justify it to myself, I just need it for the video, it's not really something I want to play for myself, it's just for the video, but still, it's piracy. So, from a gamer's perspective, it's really difficult to defend always on DRM because the perceived effects are always negative. But there are some cases where DRM can actually add value to a product, believe it or not. For instance, think of Steam. Steam in itself is DRM, but somehow owning a game on Steam feels more valuable than owning a game that you've downloaded from the Pirate Bay. It's partly because you've paid money for a Steam game, or, you've acquired a key somehow, but it's also because Steam offers a service for downloading your game, managing updates and patches that adds value to it. So in some cases like that, DRM can actually have an intrinsic value. Anyway, to summarize, future, yes. Digital, yes. Speed Champion VGC says, if you do a Retro Hoy series, one episode has to be a Pokemon episode. It is a pretty popular game, isn't it? It could happen, although it would be with some trepidation because, I don't know, the thought of dealing with Pokemon fans, it fills me with a certain kind of dread. At least when you do something like Half-Life, the worst you get are the people who think Half-Life is overrated. They come into the comment section and they type proudly, I don't think Half-Life is that good. Like it's some sort of revelation. Pokemon fans, though, oh good God. Now, you see, I played Pokemon back in the day and I've played it since, and I'm aware of its impact on gaming, but I don't know. I just don't feel like I'm well equipped enough to tackle Pokemon. Because I do think, I don't know, you say the wrong thing, the fans will tear you apart. So, maybe. Grazer Magic says, so, what are you drinking right now? I am drinking some Pepsi Max, as it happens. It's too early to be drinking alcohol. Fun fact, I think the last beer I had was actually the last bonus. I had 2 cans of Guinness, the last bonus I recorded, and that was the last time I drank. Who's Evasive says, thoughts on the Ebola outbreak? Do you see it as an issue that we resolve very soon, or is it the start of the Earth's end? Or do you support the anti-government conspiracy theories about it? Is that sort of thing? It's kind of died off, hasn't it, really? I mean, you hear about occasional cases, but yeah, I don't think it's that large of an issue. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't want to catch Ebola. It sounds like a pretty nasty thing to have. But I think it's less infectious than the media would have you believe. Or maybe the government got to me first, and this really is the beginning of the end. Which government, Stu? Doesn't matter, they're all the same. I Huzzah says, Stu, what do you think of series that abandon their roots and what made them successful, and go on to try other, potentially series-destroying things? Now, you see, there are two sides to this, really. On the one hand, yeah, alright, you can have games that betray the tradition of the games that came before it and lose the fan base and destroy the franchise. Okay, that's bad. But on the other hand, you can have games which are wonderfully reinvented. And I suppose one example of this could be Fallout, for instance. Now, I know that Fallout 2, both of these games are well loved. But they exist in a very specific time in gaming history, the golden age of PC gaming, when an isometric turn-based sort of top-down thingamabob would be accepted. Unfortunately, the same is not true today. So in the case of Fallout 3, I've got to say, the moves that Bethesda made into going into a more detailed three-dimensional world was probably a wise move. And because of those changes, Fallout 3, New Vegas have become incredibly popular games, and there's a whole bunch of people waiting with bated breath for Fallout 4. So I think that might be a good example of a series betraying its tradition for the sake of making a better game. So it depends, really. I mean, not everything lasts forever. And so sometimes games do need to experiment and change and evolve. And it can be sometimes difficult to see which way the wind is blowing, so sometimes missteps are made. But yeah, like I say, it's not always a bad thing when games try something new. Double Portal Inc. says, Hey Stu, once Iconic Arms returns, could you cover the Vzor 61 Scorpion in one of the episodes? It's a legend, and it would be a great way to bring Česká zbrojovka into the series. I like the Scorpion. It's a nice little gun, actually. I don't think it's going to make the cut for Season 2, but I certainly wouldn't rule it out for future seasons. Actually, thinking about it, I think it's quite an important gun. I mean, if you think about it, it's been in a few Call of Duty games, and it was also in GoldenEye. It was the Klob, widely regarded as one of the worst guns in FPS history, but still, it's important. J1N60 says, Stu, if you could replace COD on your main channel with a different game, what would it be? Probably Cooking Mama on the Wii. It's probably one of my favourite games, actually, and I'm desperately looking forward to an update on the Wii U if it ever comes out. I should do a video for it sometime. Maybe for April Fool's Day. Who knows? Goki God says, I would try before you buy with Driveclub. I've been playing it this week and I think it's incredibly underwhelming. I don't even think it looks all that good. Wait for the PSN Plus version, if that ever happens. Do you know, it's funny to think, when I pre-ordered my PS4, the one game that I ordered with it was Driveclub. It was supposed to be, a fantastic launch title. It was supposed to be this next generation of social racer. And, they got pushed back. I got Killzone instead, which, that was equally underwhelming. But, here we are. Driveclub eventually came out. Didn't review particularly well, and they messed up. They really messed up with the online services. I think Polygon actually adjusted their score. Originally, they awarded it a 7.5, and because the online services haven't worked for 2 weeks, they've adjusted it to a 5 out of 10. So yes, I'm waiting for the PS Plus version, basically. I'll see what it's like then, and at some point in the future I might pick up a cheap copy of the disc. I imagine the next racing game I'll probably play, though, is The Crew, which I think is coming out in the start of December. But then that's been delayed as well, which is never a good sign. But we shall see. I'm keeping an open mind. I suppose Sunset Overdrive has a question mark hanging over its head as well. I do wonder how that's going to review. I think some YouTubers have been given advanced copies. Apparently I'm not enough of a YouTuber to warrant one, but I'm sure, they're having fun. It will be interesting to see. Most of the Xbox One exclusives have been solid, at least. So, hopefully. I haven't pre-ordered it or anything. I'm just, I'm going to wait and see how it turns out. And if it turns out it's actually pretty good, then I might pick it up. Anyway, I think that will do for this bonus episode. I feel the need to push on with my main video work, instead of dallying around playing Metro and making bonus videos, so that's what I shall do. I should aim to try and finish the first part It's only a few minutes worth of writing. I should be able to do that in a single day, in theory. Maybe I should just have a nap instead. Anyway, until next week, farewell.